Hi, everybody. We're here. Um, as many of you know, we're here because, we decided not to stream today in solidarity with the Amazon worker strike. So instead, we're having a little behind the scenes ish. It's not. Does it count as behind the scenes if we're publishing it on YouTube? I don't think it does.
No.
But we're having a
It's
little,
outside of the story,
yeah,
behind the game.
behind
Behind
the
the
Yeah.
behind the screens.
behind the
Ooh.
screens video. Sorry, that's a reference to one of our earlier behind the scenes videos from way back, like Rule of Lore. This is like the anyway. That's not important.
It's got to go in the
Anyway,
clickbait YouTube title.
yeah, exactly. Oh yeah,
All
totally.
caps behind the screens at Rule of Lore.
the
Oh gosh.
oh gosh, yeah. Anyway, we're here to talk about Infinite Horizon. Unfortunately, Olivia could not join us tonight, but hopefully she will be here for the actual live stream Q&A. So we're going to aim to have as many of us present for all of these as possible. But for now, we've got all of us here. And I just now realized that I forgot to put all of our display names up on the Zoom call. All right, now we have our names on screen. Everything's fine now. So we're just gonna go ahead and just jump into our discussion. Does anybody have anything in particular they wanna? Any burning comments, questions?
If I just scream for 2 minutes straight, does that count as a comment or a question?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. And
I know, right?
No. So
feel about the last 2 episodes.
I want you to know that I help Lucas design the encounters and stuff for these things, parts of them anyway, and I feel about the same way when things play out. I'm just like, that's so cool. I'm like, wait, I talked about that last week, but that's so cool.
That was me watching Dungeons and Dorm Rooms, like being in the writer's room planning, and then it happened, and I was always like, oh shit, no way, like.
yeah. Well,
as if
who
it
could have
wasn't my
predicted
idea or
this?
something.
I will take this opportunity to say, because there's a possibility that it is not clear to some of our audience who will be consuming this content on YouTube, but I would like, for those of you who do not already know, I'd like to introduce Mr. Jonathan Boyle, who is the third member, along with myself and Caitlin, of the Rule of Lore Writers Room team. So John is here to talk about stuff with us.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
all right.
It's amazing. It's amazing that you're just talking about that. Being amazed, even though you were behind the scenes, organizing it and writing it. It's always amazing when you can still amaze yourself with something, with your own, with your own mind skills, writing things down, mind skills. That's so.
A lot of the things I remember from it, like from the last campaign, was being like the way that the players handled something was like
Yeah.
not in any way we expected, but it still had like maybe the same outcome we were hoping for, but like the method of getting there was always like, you guys are so cool.
Yeah.
It's not exactly the same, but I'm realizing some of the greatest joy I get out of tabletop role-playing games and Infinite Horizon in particular is like getting, even as a player, just getting a chance to sit back and see how other people fix stuff. Right? I think I mentioned it after our most recent session. I was like, man, you guys are so quick at figuring things out.
Yeah.
Like, I love it. And and it's something is satisfying about being almost able to grasp an idea and then somebody else says it first. I'm like, whew, that's it's gratifying because I'm like, oh, we were on the same track, but I have such competent, smart people on my team that they're just beating me to it. That sounds arrogant anyway, I like it.
I love just sitting and watching in a scene I'm not involved with, just popcorn. You guys are so fun to watch. Even if I'm involved in the game, but if I'm not in a scene, even if I'm in the scene, just watching my fellow players do their thing is just so delightful to me. I feel like I'm biased, but I feel like we have such a cool crew.
Yeah.
Since Olivia's not here, we have to talk about her.
We have to compliment Olivia.
Yeah, I like her. Every time
law.
she is talking to an NPC and she settles into her her face, and is well, what about this? The sort of honeyed words politician, but not in a greasy snake oil salesman way. I don't know.
What did you guys call her? The Lucas and John? Space something. It was who? What?
Space AOC.
Space AOC.
There, yeah. That's...
So this came from
Wow.
it's one of our entries to the running list that we keep of things we're not calling stuff. Like we'll come up and for context for those who don't already know, we frequently in the course of Writers Room will come up with terms for things before we've
And
actually
will not.
properly named them, and quite often those terms for things are terrible. And so we just sort of
worst.
use them as shorthand, and then as soon as we come up with a name for them, we dump it into the list.
The list.
And
Yeah,
one of the things on that list was Space AOC.
A
So
lot of the things on the list are space, some type of noun, and it's
Well,
Yeah.
it only makes sense because we're in space.
and so like the other day we were sort of every once in a while we'll like reference the list just to remember what's on there, and I was like, oh man, Space AOC. I'm pretty sure that's just Peach. So,
yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
yeah. So
I think the most recent entry to that one was we were trying to figure out a name for Metagel, like the,
Oh.
Not
the
Metagel.
medical supplies.
Metagel is Mass Effect.
Nanogel.
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 no, Mass
sorry.
Effect
Oh
is
my God.
Omnigel, I thought.
Omnigel is a
Another
different
thing.
thing.
Shit,
In
there's a lot
Mass
of
Effect.
gels.
I thought it was alpha gel. I'm just gonna.
So many
Theta
gels.
gel.
Gamma
Space gel.
gel.
Yeah, we couldn't come up for something. I think Caitlin was like, "What if we just make it Band-Aid backwards?"
No,
So
I
like
was like,
Band-Aid
while
spelled
while
backwards.
while everyone was talking, I was just like, "Hey guys, how do you spell Band-Aid backwards?"
Yeah.
Huh.
So-
Also honorable mention to Spaceball Bat.
Spaceball bat, yes.
Oh God.
Yep.
Perfect.
Very good.
What is that in the
Yeah.
context?
We
I
were
have no
talking about
idea.
melee weapons.
Oh, that's
Okay,
right.
so
Yeah,
that makes
Spaceball
sense.
bat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, it is so cool watching like everyone embody their characters, like sitting and like seeing someone go from like observing and like reacting to something, and then oh, I'm back in a scene, and like how that change. It's so fun to watch, you guys. I don't know. I feel like all of us have like particular like postures or like expressions and stuff that we take on, so that's really fun to see. I think it's
Right.
it's
I
so
think it-
delightful.
Yeah, go ahead, Henry.
I was gonna say I think it's worth reflecting again on this whole idea that I think some of us too were like a little bit ambivalent or nervous about doing this remotely because our last TTRPG was a completely everybody the same table or deal deal. But when you can see people's face on camera, that's like enough, and it sort of invites everybody to operate in a different mode in terms of how they act and in terms of how they pay attention to other people. I think
Yeah,
like
definitely.
the camera is a lot.
I remember John and I play in a game we have for several years with our like different campaigns, but like the same group of people that sort of has added over the course of time. And I remember we only did that game via voice. But eventually there got to be enough of us in like playing in the game that it was just impossible to do it. Like there were lots of people who were just constantly checking out, and we were like a lot of time was being spent in catching people up because they weren't engaged because they weren't immediately involved in what was going on because they couldn't be just through the medium. And finally one day we're like, okay, we cannot keep doing this, and so somebody I think came up with the idea of adding webcams, and it was amazing the difference that it made just immediately overnight, like a complete change. So like while this is I don't think this will ever replace like being physically at the table playing games with people, but it's damn close. Like it's as close as I think we can get without actually
Right.
being at the
Change
table.
from audio only to
Yeah.
audio and video to like like they're different
Oh, absolutely.
feelings, but
Yeah.
like definitely I feel like for me, me and Lucas talked about this a while, but being like it's hard for me to stay engaged all the time when it's audio only.
Yeah.
Like, and now going from like my first web game I ever played was audio only, and we played for most of last year, and like now coming into like the past couple of months I've been in a lot of audio video games, and I'm like, god, it's so hard for me to go back to any audio only games. This makes it so much easier for
Yeah.
me to focus.
You know,
Yeah.
I was just thinking that it's there's almost like a whole spectrum that runs from like true completely in-person game at the table to like video game, right? Because the way we play Infinite Horizon is closer to an in-person at the table game than say a dungeon crawl heavy game over Roll20, right? Because that has like almost a video game aspect of like a graphic that's not
Right.
people's faces that you're looking at and interacting with like very frequently.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I like that we're doing it this way.
It helps a lot too that we have played games together, not just remotely, but
Right.
at Gen Con we played games together.
Yeah. And
That also helps a lot.
And Freeman and Henry, well, I think Henry, you were the person here that I've played tabletop RPGs with the longest.
I think that's true.
Not necessarily the most, but like not in terms of like actual hours spent, but in terms of
Right.
like as far back. Like
The earliest.
You're the person that I played with the earliest.
Yeah. Weird sleepovers with me showing you a new system I found
Yeah.
for free on the internet every couple weeks or months or whatever.
Hell yes.
A lot of my high school years involved random out of the blue phone calls from Henry being like, "Hey, want to come play some role-playing games?" And showing up at his house being like with this sort of like manic look to him being like, "I found a new role-playing system and I want to test it out."
Oh gosh. Oh, that was
like
fun.
a little bit of an exaggeration, but it's more fun to remember it that way.
I don't see any lie. Yeah.
This is a side tangent. Just I'll be very quick, but
Yeah.
like I've told Lucas this before, but growing up, I wish I had had tabletop RPGs. Like I wish that had been a part of my life because literally me and my friends did that shit. Except it was like, hey, I had an idea for a story we could write together, and like 6 of us would get together, make characters, and write a story together in a specific genre. Like we would
Right.
do that shit, but it was literally just a tabletop RPG without the dice, and I wish we had had the tabletop RPG as a
That's-
vessel.
It was. This is yeah. I know you're. This is kind of a side, but like discovering that tabletop RPGs existed was like finding a vessel for an energy that I was
Yes.
like exuding since
Mm.
being a toddler, right?
Mhm.
Finding that
Absolutely.
as a young teenager, I wish I had found him earlier. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Freeman.
And
you know-
like,
oh, sorry.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
no.
I was just gonna say, Freeman. You know what that reminds me of? What Caitlin said. It reminds me of our precursor to tabletop RPGs, which was mostly just me telling us like an interactive story to like a bunch of
Right.
people on a road trip, when we were just
Exactly.
just going, and I would just be like telling an interactive story, and everybody would like explain their characters and whatever, and then they would just like, we would just do it. It was like no rules. It was just purely narrative. We were just like, yeah, that was how we passed several school trips. Actually, we did a lot of that.
Mhm.
Like,
I remember we did it on I think a road trip type. Well, it wasn't a road trip, but it was a school trip that required driving on a road.
yeah,
So
it was effectively
basically
a road trip. But yes,
a road trip. Yeah, really
we spent
was.
way more time in vehicles than we did actually doing school-related things.
Doing
so,
school-related stuff, yeah, or camping even.
Yeah,
If you wanted to do that trip accurately, the Lewis and Clark trip, you'd actually have to take the time they spent.
I know. But instead, we spent it in our imaginations like the whole time.
Hey,
There's
it was
nothing
good.
that anybody could do to make us not do that. So,
Yeah, driving. I think when we were camping too, maybe I think we were like in the same tent.
oh yeah,
And so
we entertained our teachers. Entertained, confused, and maybe frustrated a little bit, but like,
absolutely brilliant.
As the person in the room with teaching experience, yeah, probably all of those.
yeah. John,
I
what
love
were you
that
gonna
this
say
just
earlier?
turned into Ramblemancy about our tabletop RPG origins.
I mean, kinda. It's all related.
Mhm. I'll like doubling back towards like just starting to like slingshot around the moon that is Infinite Horizon right now.
Yeah.
I think the cipher system lends itself like really well to that kind of like game that like everybody here I think is very interested in playing too, because like I think it's safe to say that everybody here is like super invested in some way or another, has experience in some way or another telling those kind of like communal stories like that, where or just like has a lot of that creative energy. And the way that cipher system like sets itself up and encourages you to play, encourages you to like do that, to like not only think about how your character fits within a story and how they act within that story from your very like the way you compose your character statement, to just like encouraging you to throw the GM softballs by spending some XP to make up places or things or events, like just
so much.
Yeah.
so cool.
much XP.
I know, like I play in another game outside this, and the other characters are full tier ahead of me because I just keep spending XP making people up. So like,
There you go.
fun,
Yeah. No, something that I think is interesting that like in Infinite Horizon we haven't seen much of, and I think it's mostly because we're still like all relatively new to the system, and so like remembering what options are like in front of us is player intrusions.
Mhm.
Like that's something that I'm looking forward to the point where we get where we get familiar enough with the system where like people remember that player intrusions are a thing, because as I've said on many occasions, I love chaos.
Yeah.
I mean,
You know,
making something true is kind of a GM intrusion or a player intrusion, right? Like
Yeah,
spending XP.
yeah.
Like, so we've done it like
Yeah,
once or
absolutely.
twice, but never to like to chaos,
Yeah.
which it'll come, I'm sure.
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. Because that's the thing. Like as a GM, it's kind of your job to understand the world and to know generally where things are going. That's your job. And so for me, some of the joy of GMing comes from not knowing, those moments where I don't know or something happened I wasn't expecting, because generally I'm expecting all of it, and it's great to be surprised every once in a while.
Yeah.
I think it might benefit us to like find some kind of nice cheat sheets or something. I just thought of this with what you're talking about, like because there's a lot that you can do with XP, and I probably don't have it memorized. I think that there were like cheat sheets that were like mats at the Monty Cook booth at Gen Con last year, which was a fantastic place to be. It was the center of the universe for us for a while. But
Yeah.
I might look after this. I'm gonna look for something like that, because I think that'd be useful to me and make things more interesting if I knew what the heck to do with my XP at any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's well, and I know in Stars or Fire there's a lot of little like charts and stuff like that. Like I sent Caitlin like like and then you got the book,
Piloting tricks.
but yeah,
Mhm.
there's like the chart that has like the piloting like maneuvers and things like
Maneuvers, yeah.
I need to go
Yeah.
look that up.
And
That
so,
sounds
like,
super
Very
cool.
good.
It's the
I'm obsessed with this chart.
I love the Stars Are Fire. It's such an amazing resource, but I will also say that a lot of the other charts in that section aren't the most useful for the game that we're running. Like that one is in particular useful because there's a lot of space stuff. The others are things that are much more. Those are, I think, the combat rules in Stars or Fire are much more along the lines, like if you're running a game along the lines of like Star Trek, where you've got a full bridge crew of trained individuals who have their specific station that they are trained in. It's much more that than it is.
Yeah, whereas we're just like Bina threading needle after needle and be like, you get over there, press that button, and we're just like,
A
ah!
lot of it's been Bina trying to keep us out of combat to
Yeah.
begin with.
Yeah, it's like Bina's like, put your seatbelts on.
Yeah, that's been our ship. That's been our ship maneuvers.
Bina has piloting skill. Everybody else is proficient in putting their seatbelt on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Everyone else
Not
is
always. Not
Yeah.
always.
Jade.
Poor Jade.
Jade, it's important to wear your seatbelt.
Listen, it's always happened when someone's caught him off guard.
It's true. It's true.
If you all don't mind getting specific about Infinite
Yes.
Horizon here,
Mhm.
I'm interested. What for players? What like choices or discoveries or moments, or for writers, what like incarnations of story playing out or improvised moments or whatever? What's stuck in your mind? What's your favorite so far? What are you most proud of?
Hmm.
For yourself or for stuff you've seen other people do, I
Mhm.
guess. Yeah.
And me and
Oh.
Lucas were talking about
Compliment
this
each
is just because it's recent in my mind, but me and Lucas were talking about this after the last game. But 2 sessions ago, after that rowdy dinner scene, just like the 2-minute interaction between Bina and Jade, where she was like, it's like, you're good, kid. Like it's just nanogel. And the look on Lucas's face made me feel like, is it just nanogel? Like that whole thing that Lucas told me afterwards, they weren't intending on revealing the stowaway then, but that interaction was like, oh well, it had to happen here. It just so much happens so quickly, and it's so funny to me, and it's not anything particularly like dramatic or grandiose, but it's just such a funny scene to me that I think is very cute. Just the dinner leading into that.
Yeah.
That
So
scene
good
was
to me.
was such an interesting matrix of who knew which pieces of
Yeah.
information and how they were dealing with it.
Mhm.
Like in character, out of character. That was I've never
So
experienced
good.
a scene like that. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
really
Ugh,
Yeah.
that
Butt
whole
cut.
scene is so good.
Butt
Butt
cut.
Butt
Okay,
cut.
so,
Butt cut.
just a quick aside. Caitlin challenged me after we got out of that episode after we finished it. She challenged me to include the words "butt" or "cut" into that episode title, and I tried. I gave it an honest effort. It took me an hour to name that episode
A
because I
plus
was
for
trying
effort.
so hard to find a way of working one of those two words into the title, and in the end, I was like, I can't because it's like 2 a.m. and I'm tired. So, but yeah, I tried. It didn't happen, unfortunately. What could have been?
What
There's
could have
always
been?
more episodes to title.
That's
We'll
true.
figure it out.
That's true.
We'll bring back the butt cut, or will
Sneak
we?
it in
I
when
don't.
you
I don't
reach
know.
Hashtag butt cut.
I think one of my favorite moments as a writer, and we like Lucas and I had kind of talked about like a moment on Sulan, like the way that like an encounter would play out, but it was really cool to see it unfold. That combat where you guys met Zaya. It was cool for a number of reasons, and I think the thing that made it really like it was fun, of course, like Zaya making the kind of entrance that we'd planned, but it was even cooler like listening to it and watching it, just because like in the same way that someone tells you, oh yeah, in episode 2 this happens exactly, and then you watch it play it for yourself and it's like, oh my god, you know. But the coolest thing I think was watching like Baby's first combat with you guys, like all of you guys like struggling to use like new powers that were unfamiliar to you. You know, it was cool like for that ensemble superhero cast to all be like trying to fight together, but you don't really know each other yet, and you don't really know what your powers do either. So like it was
Yeah, and that fight had Mason just kneecapping people like it's nothing. Like that. Like
This wasn't when we met Zaya. This was when we saved Patch. That fight.
That's right. Yeah. I thought you met. Maybe I'm mixing this up in my head, but did you meet her shortly after?
No, Zaya was first, and that like there was no combat when they met Zaya.
No, Zaya nixed the enemies
Yeah, we
immediately,
saw
and
the
we were like,
combat, but it was
"Oh
just a flash.
shit!" And then she was like, "Come with me if you want to live," and it was it was good.
Basically.
And that's how that scene went, exactly word for word.
Still,
Yeah,
I don't think that mix-up changes what you're saying at all. Like,
No,
it's
no,
the
no.
same-
I was just
think
trying
it
to be
was-
like, wait. I was
Yeah.
like, wait a second.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. It's good. No, same difference. Yes.
Yeah, they just blurred together in my head, but like Baby's first
Both happened
combat
in an
was so
alleyway.
fun to watch. Yeah, right.
Yeah. No, like gosh, I have so many, but like, and Caitlin's heard most of them because usually like hours after we finish the episode,
We
Caitlin and I.
decompress for like 2.5 hours after every session.
So like Caitlin has heard them all. But there's most recently, I think the most recent one for me. This was what we were talking about the other night, Caitlin, when I was saying how like sometimes it feels weird for me to say, oh yeah, like one of my favorite things that happened was this thing that I did with an NPC. But the difference is that like for me, what matters with that is that so often it's reactionary. Like it's not something I thought about or like it was rarely premeditated. It's just something like that just happened because like I'm in the character's head, like in an NPC's head. So like whenever I think about that, like later on, I'm like, oh wait a minute, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And like
just serendipitous.
one of the
way
things,
the things line up.
Yeah, and the most recent example of that is in. Sorry. Also, it kind of goes without saying, but I'm gonna say it anyway. That like, there's lots of spoilers in this. Like, if you're not
Oh,
caught
yeah.
up, maybe
We're going
don't,
up to
like,
the most recent episode for sure.
Yeah, like just hopefully we haven't said too much yet. But I think they might have gotten the message by this
Figure
point
it
if
out,
they're
yeah.
here. And anyway, but like one of the most recent examples of that for me was
2 episodes ago.
2 episodes ago, yeah, where so like not this most recent one, but the one before that, where we got to see a little bit of, and one part of this was intentional and one part of it was completely unintentional. The intentional part was we got to see a little bit of the suspicion, got a taste of the suspicion that organics have for synthetics through Abriel and the way that she deals with Patch, right? Where for me, one of the like strongest moments in that, and also one of the hardest for me to personally to actually like bring out, was when she specifically said, keep that thing out of my med bay. And that was like, I felt so gross afterwards, but like at the same time, it was,
That's the climate.
that's where we're at. And so that was the intentional one. What I did not intend was in that same episode where we actually got to see the same kind of like misunderstanding from the perspective of the synthetics, but played out in a totally different way, where Patch later asks Bina to basically be the representative for all organics. Like, so tell me, how do you organics feel about
Yeah.
this? And like, and I didn't. That was completely unintentional. But later on, I looked back on it and I was like, that was amazing and great parallels that happened there.
Yeah.
And I did not intend for that to happen, but it was perfect.
Me and Lucas talked about this for like a while, like after last episode and after the episode before that. But like, I was like, Caitlin and Bina were both very aware by the way that Patch is wording things that like what I'm saying right now, Patch is taking as word for all organics. Don't fuck it up. That was the episode that I was like, I was telling Lucas about this as well, but being like, oh my god, almost every word that Bina said that episode held some kind of weight to someone, and I was like, Jesus, that like makes me exhausted like thinking about that, because it was, we had the Jade conversation, we had the Patch conversation, and then also me with the fucking like 11-point spend to make people afraid. But like it was like I was like all episode I was like, Jesus, everything I said after the episode I was like, God, everything I said was like I had to think so hard about it. I'm so tired. Like it was all unintentional, but yeah, that was like Patch being like, you are organic, so you can speak for all organics, correct? And like
Yeah.
I knew there was no way that she could convince him otherwise, so I was like, okay.
I like that you picked it up like really quick though, it seemed to me, and be like, okay, but let me make it clear, organics are not a monoculture. Like
Yes.
these things are not wide truths. Like
Mhm.
I'm sure that out of character and in character I would have stumbled over that probably a lot harder. So I was glad to see you handle it. Whether or not Patch gets it, you know?
Yeah.
I like it was a little bit of like a meta thing because Caitlin knows things about Voxora and like knows the way that manifests. But I was trying to be like, okay, only what does Bina know in this situation? But it was very easy with the way Patch was talking. And like the way that I've built Bina is Bina understand, like I've said this before, Bina understands people don't always understand Bina. So like the way he was talking was enough for me to be like, okay, Bina can understand what Patch is asking of her right now and why, and she's gonna have to choose her words very specifically here.
Yeah.
That was very fun though.
Yeah. And so like for me, like I knew what I was doing in the moment with Patch. Like I was doing that on purpose, but I didn't realize until much later how it paralleled what like Abriel's display of not understanding synthetics. And that's my answer to your question. Is that's probably
Yeah,
the biggest moment for that.
I love that.
Yeah. Freeman, you got one?
I don't. Oh, I do. Sorry.
Nailed it, got it on.
Hey, Freeman, I love you, okay?
Well, yes,
I-
but actually no. No, but actually yes.
Well, I didn't have one at the moment. I was just scratching my nose here.
Mm.
Oh man, do I have a favorite moment of somebody's or of my own? A moment like role playing, or just in the whole thing, like in general? Anything?
Anything that you were like, I like this.
I do like when I discover in the moment something about my character.
Yes.
I do love that a lot. I do have things that will come up later, either naturally or I will be like, this seems like a good time. Read the moment and be like, this is where this happens.
Yeah.
Are these things that you like thought of organically in play that you're putting in your back pocket?
What?
I mean, are these ideas that were built into your backstory that you
Oh, yeah,
waited
yeah,
to
some of them.
share,
Mhm,
or
mhm.
or are some of
Yes.
them you like thought of in the moment based on what was
Both.
happening?
I guess
That's
both,
cool.
really. Yeah.
See, we've talked about like various ways, like the way Freeman plays characters, like right, makes a
Yeah.
skeleton of a backstory and finds out a lot. I love it. I'm
Thank you.
Yeah, I like Mason. I'm excited to learn some of his
I need-
secrets.
Well-
I need a gif. I need a gif of the notebook flip. Like I
Yeah.
just I need it
Yeah.
with my
I
soul.
got
That clip, yeah, we.
It was,
was-
so good. I've watched that like
Yeah.
7 or 8
Yeah,
times
it's-
now. That moment.
Good. I'm glad. Me too.
Related, by the way,
Peaches-
to the... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, John.
Like, Peach is very serious, and then you as Freeman as Mason were just like, whoop.
It's so good.
Related, however, to Mason and stuff like that. One of the other moments that Caitlin and I talked about the other night that I really, really liked was like the interaction with Abriel in this most recent episode between the two of them.
Yes.
In the observation deck.
Yeah, with Mason doing his whole like the conspiracy board spread, right? And then just having that sort of that just kind of quiet moment between the two of them as they're just sort of talking in one of the few conversations with Abriel that didn't turn in, that wasn't about immediate or impending injuries.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah.
It was just about the bottle.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And the answer's at the bottom of it.
Yep.
Yeah. The answer's at the bottom.
That was a good line.
Yeah. I really liked that moment. It got to
Very good.
it showed both of them in a context I think we hadn't quite seen either of them in.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
That was a moment I really liked too. Absolutely. Anytime like Mason has like a near heart to heart or like a serious in-depth conversation that's not just him like analyzing your every move, you know, and just being quiet, you know, because that's what he does. He's got a guarded character. He doesn't trust much. He only trusts what he can like figure out step by step with his thing, with his huge, you know.
Yeah. Speaking of
Conspiracy
Mason
board.
moments,
Mm-hmm.
end of the last
Oh, yeah.
episode is still so good. Oh,
Ooh,
it's
yes.
so good. I'm so happy.
Mm-hmm. That was good.
I like romance and tabletop role playing games. And I don't know if everybody does, but even if it's that, it's more like hints of flirtation than
Yeah,
like
it's just
than like
it's
a
a different type of connection with an NPC. It's great.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just fun, okay?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Well,
Even
plus,
if it's like not a thing that comes back or anything that becomes like relevant in the plot later, like it was just
Right.
such a fun moment. Like it was such a great scene.
yeah. Plus, like, I think that aspect of any story, when done well, it can serve as a tool to just deepen the story and deepen the characters. And, like, really, I think there might be some people who disagree with me on this, but my personal take on stories is that the primary goal of a story is to make you feel, you know, and like that, and that's sort of the mentality I have whenever I go into any of my games. Really, I suppose it depends on who I'm playing with. Like it depends on the group that I have. But if I'm reasonably certain that the group that I'm playing with like is like would agree with me, or at the very least not fight me on it, then I'll do it, because that's like my primary goal when telling any kind of story, is to make people feel something. And I think
Get something out of it.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. There are few better tools, I think, in storytelling for evoking emotion than romance, and at whatever
Honestly,
level.
or even honestly, even just character relationship, like the
Yeah.
connections forged between
Right.
characters. Like that's what a story. I feel like
Absolutely.
what a good story is built
Mhm.
on. So
Right.
I love
So
that.
it meaningful relationships
Mhm.
don't have to include the romantic type, but that's one of the tools in
One
that
of
tool
them,
set, right?
yeah.
And it's yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That was such a fun like fade out, that scene though, was like the camera pans away of everyone just like rowdy running.
Yeah.
We talked about it afterwards, right? Where we like described everybody's reactions. Where Bino would be like, ah, and Peach is just kind of like looking like, and Olin's like trying to look anywhere but at like.
My God,
Just
I
the-
wish.
The Mason, like all 5 foot nothing, you know, all 4 arms.
Yeah.
He was just like, jeez.
That moment had additional weight to me, I think, when I thought about it a little bit afterward, in that it punctuated our departure from the like mining colony, and it made me think that helping a small group of people intensely for a short amount of time and then leaving never to see them again might become a part of our formulaic story pattern if we're doing this. And that's
Yeah.
like very bittersweet, right?
Mhm.
Neat. And like I don't know if that's really how it's going to be, but it could. And I was thinking like
Like that's what we would understand from that moment. Like that
right,
makes
in
sense.
stories of this type, that's what happens. You get to know people really well over a handful of days, and then because of like mortal danger, you gotta go, and maybe you'll never see him again. So
Yeah.
that like that moment made that concrete. And I think Trace might have even said something like that, like, I'll probably never see you again or something.
She might have.
Yeah.
I actually don't remember. Most of that moment was improvised, so like
It was so good.
so my memory of it is a little but yeah.
Oh, I loved that. I loved that so much.
Yeah.
That might even be something that Mason's a little familiar with, because I thought about that too, Henry. Mason's like, after he joined the regulators, he probably wasn't like in one place all the time. He probably went around a lot,
Right.
and one place to another, and couldn't really grow attached to much. It was just like a mission,
Right.
rest, mission.
Well,
kind of thing.
especially being like in the investigative branch, because you are often more than other branches of the regulators, you touch down, you investigate a crime, which often means talking to witnesses,
Yeah.
like victims' families, things like that,
Mm-hmm.
and then just as soon as it's all over, you're just gone.
Yeah.
And probably never
Yep.
see him again.
Exactly. So I feel like Mason is probably used to that kind of thing, and it is very bittersweet still, but that's something it was almost sort of raised with, but not quite.
Yeah. Okay, I have a question, and I believe I ask some form of this question every time we have something like this, and this is a question for everybody. But what are things, and John, you use your discretion when answering. What are things that you're looking forward to seeing in Infinite Horizon? Like either generally or specifically, as much
No
as
writer's room spoilers is what you mean.
yeah, basically. So, like things either that you're
Conduit racing. Conduit racing. Conduit racing.
Yeah.
Ever since we invented that, I've needed it so badly.
Yes.
Literally, we came up conduit racing over a year ago, or like about a year ago, maybe. I loved it so much. I built a character around it. You guys, I'm so excited for it to show up in game.
Caitlin, do you do any like speedy sports or anything in real life? Is there any connection
I am
there?
so sedentary. I don't move very much in my day to day. Like I am not fast. I don't run.
TTRPGs.
I just
That's
I
cool.
haven't, I haven't done a
wondering.
sport in like 8 years. No, I don't know. It was just we came up with it, and then like I knew. So I think I remember having a lot to say about conduit racing, and obviously a lot to say about making the Orzai. And so I think it was the things that I helped come up with. I got so attached to, and I wasn't when we were coming up with stuff. I was never intending to be a player. Like that didn't come until like 2 months, 3 months before the actual show was
I
like
think
it wasn't.
we talked about it way before that, but like we didn't solidify it until like
It wasn't like for real until like way close. So like I made most of Bina, aside from knowing she was going to be an Orzai who probably did conduit racing. Like that's the only thing I knew about her before our like session 0.
Yeah.
So like it was just like things that I think I got really attached to because I got so excited about them when we were making them. And that's why I was like, make these two be the same in the same character, and then I'll be happy. So I've been looking forward to that being a thing. I was so
Oh, yeah.
excited about conduit racing.
Refresh my memory. Do we have a lead in the last episode that pointed us possibly towards the border worlds? Is that what they're called?
Mm-hmm.
And is
Think
that where
so.
the regulators are?
Yes.
Okay, I want to see the damn regulators because we've heard them mentioned a lot, and it's
You
part
have, yeah.
of part of Mason's deal. I want to
For
see
sure.
what they're like and how they operate, and
Pretty, yeah.
I think I don't know if Olam wants to, and he probably like would be nervous around. Well, I don't know. Yeah, but that's definitely something like that's part of like the like breadcrumbs of world building that have been dropped that we've heard about that I want to see in the flesh, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like conduit racing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of world building, there's some brand new shiny content in the border worlds thanks to our world builder patrons, and it's
Yes.
very exciting. And I will say
I'm
no
so ex-
more, but it's
I'm so
cool.
pumped for that. Yeah, that's
Is
like,
there more than what I was allowed to know, or
I'm,
is that mostly it?
I mean, there a little bit, but it's like
Okay.
not stuff that would be directly relevant to like
That's fair.
what you already know. It's like sort of
I just want to say that the stuff that I learned very cool.
Yeah.
And I hope we encounter some of it.
I'll say this:
Yeah.
you definitely learned the coolest stuff.
Hell yes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to more meetings with our world builder patrons because like every time we have one of those meetings, like so much cool shit comes out of it. Like, that's not my answer as to what I'm looking
Right,
forward
yeah.
to. It is something that I am looking forward to, but it's not the thing.
Mhm.
Oh, I would
I
just
think-
like to tack
go ahead.
on everything that I ever get excited about in this game has to do with ships and like piloting and stuff. Connet racing, like the maneuvers that I've got in this other thing that we're talking about that I'm sure will come up eventually. But the thing about it I'm excited about is flying ships. I hate driving. Me, Caitlin. I just want everyone to know that this is like most of Bina's interests are in no way indicative of me as a person. I just realized that I was like, wow, I've put so much of her interest into driving. I hate driving. Anyways, I just wanted to put that on the record.
No, that's some next level
Continue.
role playing. Pretending to like things.
I love it when I'm Bina, but not when me,
Mhm.
Caitlin, has to do it.
Right.
Makes sense.
Anyways, continue.
Huh.
We have a visitor.
Oh,
Oh,
Let me
very
see if I
nice.
can catch her before she leaves.
Oh, yeah. While John is chasing the. Nice.
there she is.
Hello. That's a good cat. Aw.
Huh. I'm excited to see more regulator stuff. I'm excited to see more super stuff. Others with abilities. I'm really excited for
With
that.
abilities that aren't ours.
That aren't ours,
Yeah.
and are
Yeah.
whether they're gonna be like it's gonna be in a combat situation or possible ally or friend or just someone we pass by. I'm really excited to see more of that develop and see what kind of connections happen from that too, or more information or anything really. It's like limitless at
Yes.
this point. I
I'm
love
excited
it.
for everything, all of it.
Yeah, basically is my answer.
Good.
Fair enough.
How about
Perfect. Perfect answer.
that?
That just, if I may, real quick, that what you said made me realize that. So we've already have faced like a super powered foe, and who made an incredibly dramatic entrance and seems to be able to like mimic our powers. But I just realized that before that happened, it hadn't crossed my mind that like we'd be fighting other super powered people. Like it's such a Chekhov's gun, like that we know they exist. They work for the people that have wronged us. But I must have like some kind of like shield in my own mind that makes me not like try not to predict what's going to happen next, because that was like such an exciting surprise to me when that person showed up.
Oh my god, I'm like, I think I said this last game, but I was like, I've never been so mad to be right. And it was like that there was it was another person like us who was showing up to fuck shit up. Ugh.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
I
Like,
have-
So good.
I have already had so many like GM poker face moments this game. Like, not in any episode in particular, but like, there's been a lot of them so far from the
Us making connections.
us. Yeah, you guys making connections or like predictions or things like that. That I've just had to be.
Be like,
Mhm.
oh yes, interesting.
well, it kind of makes sense, because part of the essence of this story is all of us being like basically physically imparted with something that's not us, that's from elsewhere, and figuring out what to do with it, where it came from, and like how to be in the universe, like in this new state. So the fact that we're like trying to unravel something that is connected, that is like another thing that is also this is getting too
So good. No, it's
like,
great.
trippy, but that makes sense that like we have to talk out loud about what this shit is, and a lot of what it is and what it does and what it means is probably part of the world building that the writers have thought about. So we have to like state stuff that relates to that.
Yeah. I will say, I think what I'm looking forward to the most, I mean, all of the above, like as you all said, everything, all of that. But also, I'm really looking forward to a chance to lean a little harder into some of the tropes of the genres that we've chosen. Right, like the superhero genre, and leaning a little bit more. We've been leaning pretty heavily on sci-fi, which is like that's what we talked about when we first started creating Infinite Horizon. We talked about being much heavier on the sci-fi element than on the superhero side of it.
Yeah.
But I am looking forward to leaning a little more on the superhero side every once in a while. Um, and but going even further, I think that's sort of my general, but more specific stuff that I'm looking forward to. Um, I'm looking forward to a chance for you all to see different parts of this universe that we've created, right? Like and to meet different NPCs, like a variety of NPCs, right? Like that. I'm really just looking forward to that stuff, the discovery element of all of this. Like not necessarily on the part of the characters because the characters are largely familiar with a lot of these things, but on the part of like you all the players and the audience, of course, right? Those are the things that I look forward to.
My new favorite thing that we've been doing is world builder fun fact. Like, hey, do you want to let everyone know what that means? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it because then we get to like share stuff more direct. We made it. We talked about this a while ago in writers' room, but like made the decision to be more like instead of just like saying jargon that is in the world, but like having like a breaking the fourth wall thing, being like, here's what this means and why this is significant. Because then it will help the players and also like the audience get to know the world better. And I think
Right.
it's only happened a handful of times now, but it's always fun, even if it's like a fun fact that like the fucking like what was the Andromeda whatever like
Andromeda yards, yeah.
like has no bearing on our story currently whatsoever, but like it's a fun fact and it's a cool thing that exists in the world that we came up with a while ago. So it's been cool being like, I feel like we should like players, if you have a thing where we're like, hey, would you explain that real quick? Like ask.
I will. Yeah, I'll try to remember that.
Mhm.
It's a fun difference from playing in like a quote unquote standard D&D-esque fantasy world where people familiar with that set like type of setting are probably familiar with most of the tropes. This is a little bit different from that.
It is certainly one of the things I miss about our early days running like Pathfinder and D&D is that like when our home game, right, when we first started running it, nobody knew anything about like D&D and like certain monsters and whatever.
Right, that's true.
So like there was this element of like everything was like new and scary but also awesome, right? Where like I would describe the creatures to you and I remember like it was just amazing like seeing all your faces when I would describe a new creature, be like, oh that's so cool. Right? But now it's all kind of old hat. Like now I'm just like like in our
It's a beholder.
yeah, it's a
All right,
beholder.
kill it.
That's a
Roll
fucking
initiative.
beholder, you know, like or like uh even some of the more obscure creatures, right? Where I can cuz like since we started, some of our players have like even jumped into like DMing and so like they know more things because they have read them and so they have an idea in their head as opposed to before where they knew nothing. Like there might have been moments where there were like creatures from taken from like folklore and like other that were in other fantasy settings and things like that they sort of extrapolated knowledge from. But that was it still had that sense of wonder and awe, and I'm really excited to get back to something like that because in this setting there's no way for anybody to know anything about it because
All homebrew, baby.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Made it.
yeah, we made it.
I think that's one thing that I like forget. Like not like forget, but like I don't think I pay attention to how fucking cool that is that like this is all this shit's made up. We
Mhm.
made all this shit up. Like this doesn't exist anywhere else. Like I think that's so cool. Like for like not only for like we're making content, but also like a game we get to play and we're like all this shit we came up with. This all exists from the ground up and out into the stars because
Yeah.
we built it. And I think that's so cool. And it's such a fun aspect of TTRPG that like I feel like it's obviously still happens, but like it's such a cool like unique experience.
Well, and going off of that, I think it's also interesting that like it's so many different parts of this when I'm running the game, right? We'll come across certain things and like every piece of this world, because it was just me, John, and Caitlin that built it, with like obviously input from the players, like making stuff on their backstory in their backstories that we just sort of were like, okay, we'll make that up for your backstory, and that's cool. We'll incorporate that in. But like it's fun for me whenever we're running stuff and describing things that every once in a while we'll run across specific stuff that has like oh that has Caitlin's signature on it and that one has John. It's like we're running around a building that every single brick of which has like names scribbled into it, right? Like carved into it. And it's so fun to just be like going through, and every single moment in the game is like it's like sort of a kernel of memory of like, oh yeah, that was this is Caitlin right here. That's Caitlin. Oh, that one's John. John did that, like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose this is almost a writer's room question. But like, what's your thing that you look at, Lucas, and you're like, yes, that's a Caitlin, that's a John thing, or like,
Okay,
yes, I
mine's
made
so
this.
easy. You can't.
Yeah, I mean, yours is the four-armed empath glowy people, but like,
As number 2. Oh, the number.
or as they're written down on the list,
Caitlin's
Caitlin's children.
children. Before they had a name, they weren't called Caitlin's children.
Yep.
They brought me in to help build alien races, and as soon as I felt comfortable in the writer's room, I was like, okay, wait. What about a bug species?
It's just like half an hour of Caitlin just like vomiting out everything about the Orzai, and John and I just like notes.
We made it all up on the spot with you. Like you guys still like helped me build them, but it was like I definitely guided that conversation. I was like, this is what you brought me here for, and I've gotten comfortable. Get ready to regret that. Like,
Yeah. Oh gosh. I'm trying to think, because like we said, Caitlin's is obvious.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think, because like John, you and I are often like very much in the same mind. So
you
like
two
what
kind of are very much 50-50 on a lot of things. Like you both go in on a lot of stuff.
We've got a lot of just in like the amount of time we've spent like doing things like this for other games that both of us have run over the years, and like even outside of games, like stories and stuff that we'll talk about and like float ideas to each other. And so like it's sort of a dynamic that we have on that, I think. So it's harder for me to pick out something I'm like, that's Lucas. Like,
I was the curveball. I came in with new thoughts.
That's why we brought you in, because John and I are too similar. That sort of backfired too, though, because now we all share a brain cell, so
I would like to say on more than one occasion I've been listening to the Dreamwell Chronicles on my phone, and my partner is like hearing John's voice has been like, "Is that Lucas?" and I'm like, not quite, not exactly.
No, but actually,
no,
yes.
but you're not entirely wrong. And
Yeah.
Oh,
How do I answer this?
yeah.
oh my god, we haven't even got like forayed into space sports yet. That is a thing we designed many months ago.
There's so many.
There are sports.
I
We
know
came up with sports, you guys.
They
That's awesome.
came up not in like any of the like session zeros, but they came up in like backstory things. Like I remember with Olim, when we were talking about this, about like how Olim's aunt would frequently drag him to like
God, what was it? Was it like racquetball?
yeah, it's like the
Grav ball?
gravity ball.
Space
Yeah.
racquetball. I do. That's funny. I remember that.
It's essentially just like 0G racquetball is essentially what it is.
We came up
No.
with, what was it, like 3 or 4 sports
Yeah.
that had to do with like different like terrain, different gravity situations, different physiques, because like they're not all humans and they're not all on Earth. What is it, 9.8 grav, whatever it is.
Right.
Like so we came up with all these different, like there are arenas that we came up with. Like it's so I changed my answer. I'm looking forward to that becoming relevant at some point.
The game is called Lift with a capital L.
Okay,
Apparently,
I
from
actually
my notes.
Yes.
This actually did bring me to an answer, because I know that there is one thing that John, like one thing that I can clearly remember that John actually took the lead mostly on, and I think of it as like a thing that John did, which was it's an Anzalonian sport, and it is essentially 0G ballroom dancing.
That's right. I forgot that existed,
That's
but
cool.
that has me written all.
Yeah. No, this. I remember we were just like silently thinking of other things, and John was like, "Oh, what about like ballroom dancing but in 0 gravity?" And then we all kind of like chewed on that for a second. And then all of a sudden the dam burst, and there was just conversation. We're just like, okay, what about this? And then they totally do this. And then, and of course, being Anzalonian and being somewhat more ostentatious in their dress, take their normal level of ostentation and ramp it up to 11, because like,
Dude,
yeah.
just like the
gaudy
crazy
ballroom. Yeah.
the crazy shit that you could do. And then like imagine like the underground like street version of that. Like, you know,
Ooh.
oh, I just like there's so many
Yeah.
cool directions to take, just like dance and like movement based
We spent
like
a long
art.
time on extracurriculars.
Oh, yeah,
Like
yeah.
that was something we spent a couple weeks on.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely did.
Because
So
there's no Earth shit
that's-
here.
that's-
Like, it's great.
that's my answer to that question, at least for John. That's
Mhm.
yeah. But I'm curious now for the two of you, if you have ones for either each other or for me. I'm curious.
I've been trying to think while we've been talking, and like the closest thing that I think that I've come up to, because it was one of the first things that when you talked to me like very early on when we were starting to build this setting, like more than a year ago, was the method of faster than light travel across large distances, which is the conduits. And that's like one of the things to me that like has Lucas written on it a little bit. And I'm trying to I'm casting around for something else too, because I know there is stuff that I'll think of, but like
This is only tangentially related, but I remember like the first couple of writers' room sessions that I set it on. Like I remember you guys being like, "Yeah, Caitlin, we're hoping," like, or something about like, "I'm bringing a hopeful flavor, so you guys don't get too grim dark." Like that was like a very specific thing that was mentioned multiple times. They're like, "Yeah, you're keeping us from getting too dark here."
Oh God, so many times when John and I were by ourselves, we found ourselves straying into that territory, and then we had to keep stopping ourselves, being like, "Nope, we gotta change it. We gotta change it."
What
Gotta
would
make
Caitlin
something
do?
else."
WWKD.
You know, I just remember that being a very specific thing in the early stages of being like, "Yeah, you, thank you for keeping us from going so dark and gritty." And I was like, "This is just how I am. I'm glad that it's helpful." I don't know you two. You're strangers to me. I'm glad I can be useful. Like,
God.
yeah, that was fun.
Mhm.
God, it's weird thinking about like all the shit that we came up with like so long ago. Is like we're here now. We're in it. We made all these things and we're with them now.
Yeah.
And I get to be in the world, which is, like I said, never an intention that we had. So
Mhm.
it's pretty fun.
Let's see. I do have a different question, and you guys can keep thinking about that if you think. But
Yeah, I'll keep it on the back burner.
so it's sort of a little bit related to an earlier question, but which is sort of, but not so much about a moment, but rather what's like your favorite favorite thing that you've seen in the world so far.
Actually, I think I know that one really
Sulon.
fast. Yes, hers.
Yeah.
That was what I was gonna say first too.
Cast and
Damn
crew
it.
of Infinite Horizon, all sharing a
We
brain
all
cell here.
Yes.
in this house we love Sulon.
It's like
I
it's
am-
like oh go on, John.
I was gonna say, I'm a sucker for like science fiction and like cyberpunk skylines. I just like the visual of that just blooms in my head every time, or anytime I see it, like I get all the little happy brain chemicals. I spent like several minutes the other day watching a video that somebody had done that just was like a 3D rendering of like some like back alley streets in a science fiction setting, and I was like, this is so cool.
Henry technically designed part of Sulon.
Yeah.
That's true.
By asking a question.
Asking a
Mhm.
question and then me going like, yes.
Yes, that is true.
Oh, I love it. It's like, hello, welcome to an interstellar sci-fi setting. Please take a look at these like cities in non-standard locations arranged in non-standard fashions, and like that's a great example of that. Like I could feel Sulon when we 1st went there. I yeah.
We
was
later
awesome.
went back and like figured out some semantics for like how things worked with Sulon being like fully along the inside of an asteroid. We changed some like how gravity manipulation, and we came up with a few things that were like specific to Sulon because of the configuration of the city. So like
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
brought it. I mean, it's so fun when having like in any game, but like players bringing as much to the world building as like I don't know. It's cool. I love that. So you did, yeah. You built Sulon.
Yes.
It's so cool because like, and this was like the dynamic that early writers room had, and then like writers room post Caitlin too, is like introducing another person into the equation to ask a question that you hadn't thought of, because you know one, two, three people, you operate within a certain like mental set. Like you think about the certain like similar things, or like
We're on
you
the
think
same
along
wavelength
similar
now.
patterns.
That's why we have world builders from Patreon coming in.
Yes, exactly. We're just importing more people to ask us oddball questions, or like interesting questions, or seemingly obvious questions, because those are sometimes come along too. Like,
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Sometimes, gosh, in every respect, in like Infinite Horizon, just rule of lore in general, sometimes it's like the most obvious things are the things that I missed. Like just recently, I was having a conversation with somebody who was like, kind of giving us a little bit, like giving us some notes. This was Spigs from Cypher Unlimited. He was like talking to me, and there were a few things that he was like saying. I was like, yeah, so here's some questions that I have, and he was asking me questions, and I was going like, that's really, really, really obvious. I don't know why we didn't think about that. But like that's true in everything, like, and even in terms of like design of the setting, and it's so helpful always to have outside perspective, because you never know. Sometimes you are just way too close to a thing to recognize the most obvious and interesting things about it. So
you don't think about how your glasses look when they're on your face,
Yeah.
unless I'm looking at myself like I am right now.
Yeah,
But
well.
like,
Freeman, did you have
Yes.
did you have a different answer other than Sulan? I wasn't sure, but
That's a good one. I I don't know. I'll have to think on it
yeah.
a little bit.
I would say the market specifically that we
Ooh.
went to
Yeah.
on Sulan. That was my favorite spot. Like, even though we didn't like it wasn't even like things were described to a T or anything like that, but it was just like the way that it was set up. I could just see it. I could feel where we were. Like, it was really cool. And also being in a populated place with like surrounded by like culture that we weren't familiar with. Like, that was just, it was such a cool moment.
It was also like it's kind of like a nice establishing thing very early on in the game to be like, okay, every character pick the food that you want to eat right now
Yes,
from
yes.
like myriad choices.
Mhm.
I really like that.
one
Always
of
like
the-
food in games.
Yes.
Oh
yes.
yeah,
Always.
hell yeah.
I was
Space pho.
Mhm.
Space pho.
Yeah.
space pho. It's on the list. If it's not, it should be. But like, I know it's on our writers' room to-do list to make up a bunch of food.
Oh, food stuff,
But
yeah.
like, if I don't think I ever actually answered the "What are you looking forward to doing?" And like my answer is like making up a whole bunch of fake food. Like,
Oh, absolutely. Nice.
I like to cook in real life, and there's something both very tropic and also very like also satisfying when you crack open a fantasy book or like a science fiction book, and there's just like a half a page description of the meal that the character is
Mhm.
eating that like just makes you super hungry, and you're like, I wish that I could eat whatever concoction it is that they have
Yeah.
made out of
Listen,
like whatever it is here.
I am,
Mhm.
as much as I dearly love the Lord of the Rings,
You
I will
talked
I
about-
will tell you I will tell you that I also firmly believe that those books are very overwritten. However, little asterisk, I love all of Tolkien's food descriptions.
Mhm.
Fucking love that
Absolutely.
shit. It's like one of my
Tolkien-
favorite parts of those books.
Peach's market meal. I fucking want to eat that.
Right?
I want to eat that. I think about that often. The meal that Peach got in the market on Sulan. I think of it regularly and wish I could have it.
Mhm.
Somebody call Binging with Babish and like get him on
Okay.
this shit.
Oh
That
god.
would
Oh no,
be
Caitlin, I just thought of
epic.
something. That food is kind of like the savory mochi that we were talking about.
You're right.
It is. It reminded me of like, gosh, I think it's in Spirited Away, or probably like other like the general genre of like Miyazaki movie.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
Foods
anime
that, like,
food is a
pop.
big thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they like
Mhm.
they pop and there's something inside them, and they're like, oh man.
There's-
Absolutely.
Okay,
I
we're
was-
talking about food now.
Well, it's
Yeah.
so easy to get into food. We all love, we all love food.
Love to
I
eat.
really do.
We love to eat. I love to
We've
cook.
actually come up with some like recently we've come up with we've done 2 spreadsheets now of like some like name generators of like coming up with like specific names for like NPCs that will fit in this under like these are Orzai names, these are Anzalone names, but like as like NPC listed. I think it gave like me a better understanding of like the different, I don't know, it was something that I had never even like really thought about before, but it was so cool to do that. And we recently did ships, like a ship generator basically.
So
Like
fun.
and put a bunch of names of like these are the names of this type of ship, these would be the names of this type of ship. I went fucking ham on the racer names. There's some really good ones in there, and I cannot wait to interact with them. Oh my god, it's gonna, yeah. But it's really cool, like coming in and like from that like specific angle has been really cool. And I'm looking forward to seeing some of that come to fruition in game.
Mm-hmm.
It's neat.
And on a similar note, I really look forward to you guys coming across any Chemoth ship ever, because I had a lot of fun naming them, and I will say nothing more on that subject,
Please.
just
Oh my
just to
God.
preserve the joy of the moment. But like,
It's gonna be like, we're gonna be like, here being hailed by a ship named this, and me, Caitlin, as Bean is gonna be like, oh, that's a Chemoth ship. I'm gonna know immediately. Like, and it makes sense for Venus' character, but also like I'll be able to tell without being prompted, tell my crew that it's a Chemoth ship. It's delightful. It's been fun coming in from like as a writer's room person, also as a player. Like, 'cause there's some very specific things that if I wasn't in the writer's room would be really hard. Like the way that I've built Bina is like the things that she knows and understands about the world, like things she's good at, would be so hard for me to absorb otherwise had I not helped make them. So it's, I think, very good. Like when it comes to like ships and things like that and like the technology, like I'm so glad that I had a hand in making some of it, because otherwise
Yeah.
I would have no grasp of it and I would feel kind of a little bit less confident playing the character I've made.
On a bit of reflection, I think I may have a pattern of making sheltered, naive characters to like explain my lack of understanding of the world.
It works though. It's fair.
It does, but I think I want to try something else sometime.
All right, once we
I hear ya.
TPK, you can get someone batter up.
I'm gonna be like Uber Mason. I'm gonna be even more closed off and serious, and I know
There you
how
go.
everything works, and I'm gonna
Get out of here. No, that'd be actually great. I want to see that.
On that, I feel like we just have such a good party dynamic. Like the differences between everyone, I feel like it just feels like a real, like a whole group of people. Like just like we've talked about this before, but like despite having two speakers or whatever, like they feel different enough, and like all the character, it's having two humans, everyone feels different enough where it's like, I don't know, I just feel like there's like all aspects of the party as a whole are just really unique and fun, and I really enjoy seeing how everyone interacts and stuff.
Right. To me, it seems like at a glance, just like by traits and categorically, it seems like obviously Mason is the one that's most similar to my character. Like we automatically match up, but like in character, I do not think I feel the strongest connection to him at all. Like, which is great, right? Because like like superficially, he's a male human like me, right? But that's
yeah.
like not that important in the scheme of shit from what we've learned about each other so far.
I also had like the
that.
same thought where I was like, just even looking at the art, or like before we met everyone, I was like, it wasn't like a purposeful thought that I had, but I remember having the notion that like, oh, I can see Mason and Olem kind of being a duo, and Peach and Bina being a duo, just for multiple reasons that are not really anything, but like seeing that not be the case has been so cool. Like I've loved just the way that everyone has like taken to each other in different ways, and like
Right.
I still love from like session 1 or 2 or wherever we were at, the split up was so good. That is still one of my favorite things that has happened.
Right.
It was so natural too. I loved that.
We've done duos, but we haven't split in like a meaningful way, right? Which I like.
It's good. I love it. I love to see I'm excited to see like different team ups for future endeavors. Like it's gonna be so cool. Like I just feel like everyone has like such different dynamics from every combination you could make of our party. It's just cool. I love that type of thing in tabletop RPGs.
I have a new answer for things I'm looking forward to.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right. Speaking now that we're talking about group dynamics, I'm really looking forward to the first big group disagreement.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking forward to.
You gotta work up to them to figure out what is meaningful to everybody. Yeah.
I don't know what it's gonna be, but I know it's coming, and I don't know what it is, but I'm really excited about it.
We've had like some like gentle squabbles, not in any sort of meaningful way, but like or like we're not quite on the same page, but it's fine. But yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be good. See where everyone's morals lie, and like
Yeah.
It's gonna be cool. I love that.
Actually, God, I'm here. I've opened the floodgates, and I'm thinking of more because there's another one, and this is one that I think is probably not that widely known beyond like our immediate circle, but we've talked about at some point once we kind of get through the initial establishing section of all of Infinite Horizon, of doing like spotlight episodes, right, where everybody's
yeah.
present, but that they highlight one specific character and their strengths or their backstory or something. That's another thing I'm looking forward to.
That's gonna be cool.
Yeah.
Oh man, in that regard, just like a Mason like doing his noir detective thing is like I'm so excited.
Just adding on to that, we've talked about this before, but like how everyone's session zeros were such different genres, like they felt so different,
Yeah.
and like we all came together very
Absolutely.
seamlessly. It's gonna be, I just have a visual of like Mason in his like black and white noir whatever, but then the rest of us are also there. Like it's
Camera
like,
pans over.
and we're in color for some reason. Like it's just, I love this like merging of like everyone is from such different worlds. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I could see us standing there, 5'9" and 4 arms. Yeah,
5 foot
that's
nothing, bud.
5 foot nothing. Oh, sorry. Mason, that's Bina. You know her. Yeah, no, but for the narration. Come on.
It's for my notes.
I don't
It's for
understand.
the internal monologue. Let me go.
I don't understand. Is he?
I need to get
is
through
he,
this.
Is he doing a bit? I don't get it. Yeah.
It's for my It's for my notes. You remember my notes? These notes.
Yes.
There it
We
is.
have, oh my God, when,
Take these
listen
notes.
to me, listen, when it's Mason's Spotlight episode, we need to put a black and white filter over it, and we need to have noir music for the entire thing. Either that, or we need to do a goofy one shot where everyone is maybe a little bit drunk, and it's black and white, and there's like
Everyone's a little
noir, or
noir.
like jazz, smooth jazz playing under it. Like,
The holodeck episode. The
yeah,
holodeck episode.
Yep.
please. I'm so into that.
Me too.
We're like all our characters, but we're like transported into this genre where we're like, yes, I believe I am in this world, even though it doesn't fully make sense. Like, we just commit to a bit for
Mhm.
3 hours. Like, I think that would be an extremely fun, goofy episode.
Oh,
That
yeah.
would be.
Absolutely. Oh man, it's a bit like communities like that, because Community is like where like they're still their actual characters, but they're oftentimes an episode is a very very different genre, but and they like kind of commit to it. It's that exact kind of
Mhm.
energy that I'm into that.
I would love that.
My God, I'm picturing it now, like a black and white filter on everything. Everybody's got like a suit or like a
Mhm.
dress or something on, and like you just like go all in on the thing. Everybody's got
High fake production value, and we just commit to the bit.
There you go.
That's what I want.
I can hear the saxophone like wailing in the
Me
background.
too.
Yep.
Like, right now in my head.
Oh, if you give me like 2 seconds, I can actually literally make that happen right now.
Mhm.
I can make that happen right now.
Absolutely.
I looked out the viewport as we departed the fourth planet in the Zolaterra system, leaving not a trace. Maybe one trace.
Honestly, like I'd be here for the cast of Infinite Horizon, like fucking write this episode and then just do it like an audiobook.
Oh my God. Ugh. We do gag episodes where like everyone takes it really seriously, but like weird, goofy shit happens, but we're all like committed to the role. Like, oh my God, it would be so funny.
Oh
Ugh.
God.
Maybe
I'm writing
one
this
trace.
down. Like
I just
Yeah,
need you
time
guys
to-
to be my internal monologue, and I just look
Yes.
around as if I'm thinking about what you guys are saying.
Holy
It's an
shit.
improv game already written. It's
Yeah.
like
that's the idea right there.
It's-
That's
Corn
it.
Mason's internal monologue.
But what it is, it's like all of us watching Mason like walk around, like we're on like a camera feed in the bridge as we watch Mason walk around. He's like, let me take a look around. And it's the three of us like sitting there doing voiceovers to ourselves as we're like like what is it? It's like when people watch muted TV, what are they saying? It's like that, bro.
Oh, that's perfect. Oh, that is so beautiful.
My stomach's rumbling. Shouldn't have eaten that fourth bag of chicharrones.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh God. Oh, well, that was an interesting tangent we just went down.
In the spirit of
This is
Ramblemancy.
brainstorming, man. I don't know what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Welcome. I'm sure none of you out there watching this were expecting to have an impromptu writers room meeting thrown at you, but here it is.
Welcome to the taste test of the world builders here on Patreon.
And speaking of
Actually, a little
which,
bit.
we are kind of to the tail end of where
It's been
we
a
are.
minute. Yeah.
Yeah, of where we were trying to get to. So, I think now is as good a time as any to talk about things like the Patreon. For instance, did you know? I'm not going to do that. On
your
Patreon,
information.
we've mentioned a few times already, but at the World Builder tier, once a month from now on, we are going to be doing these sort of little writers' room meetings using our Discord, where we invite our patrons who come in at the World Builder tier to basically just build various aspects of the world of Infinite Horizon. As you heard, we actually recently had one of those meetings and built something that we're all extremely excited about. It was like I would say 90% led by our world builders, and then a little bit about 10% guidance and addition from John and I, but to make sure that it fits well within the world. But that's one of the fun things that you can get in on with the Patreon. Henry, if you wouldn't mind throwing it over to you for our end of stream end of video announcements. This is a weird new medium, everybody.
Yeah, what is it? Oh
Yeah.
man. So I guess just to start, you can catch Infinite Horizon live Wednesdays 6 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/Rule of Lore.
Link in the description.
Yeah, exactly. Link in the description. Gosh, should I do the whole spiel or not?
I'd say talking points is good.
Right, talking points. Well, we got a new friggin' shirt in our merch store.
Yes.
If you're gonna go with that one first, then
Mhm.
oh boy, do I have a thing for you. Here we go. Ready?
Visuals.
Visuals. It's right there up on the screen. Look at that.
I love visuals.
Whoa, the crowd
Nice.
goes wild.
The crowd-
Caitlin and I went for it at the same time.
Yeah. So we have our new Infinite Horizon shirt, as Henry was mentioning, with art by our very own Caitlin Bruder. So yeah, we
So
have
check that out.
Yeah, link in the description.
I bought one today.
Link in the description. Yeah, I
I'm
didn't buy
probably
one.
gonna buy one
buy one
today.
tomorrow.
Yeah. I also bought one today.
Yeah, let's see. Lucas mentioned our Patreon. We got a Discord. Come and hang out in Discord. Share your own projects of any type. Talk with us about whatever the heck you want. I put a picture. I shared one of my favorite animals. That's the velvet worm recently, and I think they're really cute. But the response I got suggests that maybe that's not the case. Maybe not everybody agrees. But that's the fun thing about Discord. You don't have to agree. You have to have a conversation. So join us.
Link in the description. I'm just gonna do that after everything you say.
Yep.
And you can support us on Coffee if you like. We got a little Coffee, simple way to toss a few bucks our way to help us keep the dang lights on.
Link in the description. I'm sorry.
Very good.
You know what? The one thing we don't actually have actually it will be. There will be a link in the description for. You can also catch Infinite Horizon on podcast.
Right.
Caitlin, you have the list of the various.
All of them.
All of them. It's on podcast.
Anchor Breaker, Spotify, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Castbox, iTunes. So many. There's like 9 of them,
Yeah,
and then
there's a
more
bunch.
apparently that don't connect with Anchor when I ask them to.
Yeah,
So there could be secret platforms
Right.
that it
It could be
exists on, and
somewhere we
you
don't
get to
even know.
discover them. You don't even know about. Yeah, so you can do that. You pretty much just your podcast hosting platform of choice. Just search Infinite Horizon or Rule of Lore, and you should find it. But we're available most spots. Check us out.
Yeah,
If you can't catch us live.
Yeah, I'll have the Anchor link in the description, and you can pretty much go from there to any of the other ones any of the other platforms it's on. So
Also, Monty Cook, you guys rock.
yes,
You have an amazing system and some amazing dice that I ordered recently.
yeah.
That I
All
will
of this.
have soonish. I'm not in a hurry. But I'm just excited.
Yeah.
They're coming.
Yeah.
None of this would be
Huge.
possible without Monty Cook Games creating such an amazing game. So thank you to Monty Cook Games as always,
Thank you, Monty Cook.
because you create amazing products, and frankly, you're just pretty great people overall. So just thanks for all that. Any last parting thoughts from anybody?
Just thank you for everybody for tuning in to this unorthodox broadcast video.
Support
Solidarity.
strikers. Don't
Yeah,
cross the picket
solidarity
line.
with workers. Everybody stay strong, be safe, and be well in this pandemic. I'm not going to say this uncertain time, this fucking global
we're
pandemic.
banning that phrase and the ones related to it. You can thank car commercials for ruining that. So everybody, as Henry said, stay strong, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you the next time you decide to come roll with us.